Hey everyone, welcome to the Trade Life podcast by Projekt Network. I am your host, Ian MacFayden. In episode 4, we sit down with Johnny Hurahan, otherwise known as Here's Johnny, and we talk about getting started, being an apprentice, some lessons learned from his long and illustrious career, and I touch on my semi-long and less illustrious career. Hopefully we have lots of good tidbits in there. Enjoy.
Yeah, it auto removes the pauses.
Yeah. Because you'll have a lot of that in the beginning.
I say and on, all that kind of crap all the time. Okay, so here you see, I'm probably going to leave this whole fucking thing in. This is great. So here we are. This is episode 4 of the yet to be named podcast. We actually had a great name lined up. I said it in the last episode. We're going to have to cut it out because I recently discovered that name is very similar to a podcast that already exists.
Oh.
So we got to pivot. So we don't actually know what this podcast is called anymore. But
hey, I like
Johnny, Johnny, thanks for being on. You are our first external guest, episode number 4. I met you on your podcast, The Glorified Carpenter, which was fantastic and a lot of fun. I think, do you remember how long we ran? It was like 3.5 hours.
3 and change, maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes.
So we're going to keep this one. We're going to keep this one a little bit quicker. I think we're going to
small bites, just like a snack.
Exactly. We're going to get into it. We'll chat a couple more times though, so it'll be okay. For anybody that doesn't know who Johnny Hurahan is, like you've been living under a rock. So just, I don't know, look at social media and you'll figure it out.
I mean, maybe they're not from the US. I get it. You have a Canadian up north contingent. I get it. Number 4 podcast, Bobby Orr. I like it.
I love the plug.
I mean, my roots, I've been doing this for 30 years. So, and I've done everything. The line I've been using now is I've signed both sides of a check. I know what it feels like to run a business. I know what it feels like to be in the business and also be controlled by it. And now I'm at a point where I run the projects, and that's what I always wish I could have been able to do from the beginning. But it was just trying to find that meandering path. Meandering. And so it's been not the easiest road, but I don't think the best roads are just totally
No, they never are. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So the overarching theme of whatever we're going to call this podcast is life lessons through the trades, right? Everyone is at a different sort of point in their career. And we hope to provide some valuable lessons to everybody through struggle and hardship. And a big goal of the podcast is to talk openly about like the harder aspects of the trades, right? I said something on the first episode there where a lot of the content in the trades it's all butterflies and rainbows, right? Like a lot of what you see, a lot of what gets popularized. So we really want to sort of pull back the drapes and talk about the challenges of every aspect, right? Apprenticeship, going out on your own, all that kind of stuff. I think today we sort of, I'm nowhere near as prepared as you are. So before I was on your podcast, you sent me like a list of talking points. I have no list of talking points. We're just gonna shoot the shit.
We're gonna wing it. I mean,
we're winging it. We're winging it.
Some of the best things are just conversations and see what comes out of it. And I think what you're saying about, telling some of the horror stories, it's not to scare people away from the trades, but it's to be able to learn from someone else's mistake. In this industry, no one told me in the beginning how at some points it could just be totally lonely. Not because you don't have friends or, coworkers or whatever it is. It's because you're dealing with something that you don't want to admit that you're struggling with. And you don't want to tell your significant other or your girlfriend that you're doing this. You want to be who you have as a persona. And it's the same as what you're saying about social media. Everyone has a brand. Everyone has a company that they're trying to promote. So to make it real, they'd be infringing on this perfection of a brand that they're creating. So this podcast is kind of that raw, authentic conversation that these are lessons that were learned the hard way. So take little bits and pieces out of it and remember them. When you think it's too good to be true, be like, oh, well, so-and-so said this, so I should have this in my back pocket. And that's all this is just information. Like anyone that's in the trades, it's another tool for your tool set, Yeah. And as we know, when we're young, we pack everything into one set of bags and carry everything we have to whatever little task we have. So
yeah, exactly.
Take it all in,
walk down the street with it until you can afford to buy a car.
Until your hips start blowing out.
Yeah. So I think that's a great segue. Let's start at the beginning of everybody's journey. Let's kind of talk about getting into the trades. Let's try and keep it sort of trade ambivalent, right? Like I think me and you are both carpenters, but we want this to be applicable to kind of anybody getting into it. So let's talk a little bit about your history.
Plug and play. I think plumbing, electrical, HVAC, all that stuff's plug and play, because I've thought about if I had taken that solitaire game and brought it back to find the right king and put it in the right spot, that king could have been any number of trade skills. But no, it started off when I was super young. It was, before I had a license, two things I did. One was the buddy system where your best bud is like, he's got his license. He's like, I'm going to go work for a landscaper. I'm like, I'll tag along.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like it was easy work, but it's a free tan. And what's the worst I'm going to do is, try and lift that big green barrel and try and get it into a dump truck. But, work never scared me from that end of it. And I loved doing it. It's just the fact that it's weird at like 15, maybe 16, maybe I had my permit. I could see then, like your first glimpse of like the real world and work. That was like, so you're telling me I do that? I cut lawns every day, all day, and then winter I'm gonna split wood. So I'm like, I only have to perfect 3 things in this line of work, and I was like, I'm like, I can handle that. And then like over a summer, I was like, all right, this isn't gonna be enough. My ADHD or whatever it is kicked in. I was like, I can juggle more than this. And I think you look at what you're exposed to. I think early on it was like Fraggle. I don't know if you guys ever watched Fraggle Rock.
Oh yeah.
And the the little guys.
We're going to be missing the youngsters listening to this, but I know
you guys can look it up. You can look it up. They have the pop with the pop star thing. Those little dolls. My kids bought them for me. Yeah. But the little guys, they'd break through and they'd be these little construction guys, and the giants would bang up all their work, and these guys wouldn't complain. They just liked building, so they didn't care. So it was like Fraggle Rock. Then it was obviously This Old House. A little bit of MacGyver back in the day because he was always fixing something or creating something. And that was kind of my exposure to it. And it didn't take much. And I think that's the key for when it comes to kids is that like right now they're exposed to YouTube and all these things and they want to be that. So there needs to be more of us out there, because with all the technology coming along, and I can't read the future, but, there's going to be a lot of jobs to get wiped out by a software or, AI. And it's like something that won't be is something that's creative and that's off the cuff, that's in your brain and in your mind that you can create by finding a couple little details and blurring the lines. And one of the biggest things I take away at satisfaction, what I do now and always have, is that I walk away, whether it's framing a wall and I drive home and leave that day, that didn't exist the day before.
Yeah.
Like, or that day, that morning. Yeah. So for me it's so satisfying to do that. And when you're able to take someone's ideas and dreams and turn them into reality, on screen and on a computer screen, that's possible. What we do is really hard to replace. Yeah. And that's going to stay that way for a long time.
Yeah, totally. And the sort of like AI, the coming AI takeover has been a common theme that I've been talking about. And it feels like everybody in the industry that I talk to talks about it. And it's this sort of idea that AI will be replacing most office jobs. Mm-hmm. And it's going to have a hard time replacing the skilled trades, right? The sort of manual labor, the things. I was listening to it was on the Joe Rogan podcast and Elon Musk was on there. He described it as like moving atoms or something. I don't know. In his,
he's saying you get to reskill America. That's the word he used.
Yeah. We need to teach people how to use their hands, right? Yep. Like we need to reteach. We got to, me and you have been throwing this back and forth, but like we got to take back the trades. We got to make it a
100%.
Prideful experience again. And I think in the coming decade, for sure, there's going to be an influx of young people into the trades as people start to realize that it is an incredibly valuable career path. So
I think the value will also come more than what you and I are seeing now for wages, if we put it simple.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The wages, I mean, they keep going up as
they're going through the roof. Yeah. Even the last 5 years, it's been ridiculous. And it's great to see. And I'm not going to be bitter about it that I wish, I wish it's like these country guys that are like, oh, well, Zach Bryan became big because of TikTok. It's like, don't be jealous, man, that there was a platform that came about. I think I would like to what I do with my podcast, what I do with social media is try and give back to a trade that's given me such great things.
Yeah.
It's been hard, don't get me wrong, but it's something that I've never thought of it as work. It's always been something of a hobby that I've been able to turn into something that I can make a living at.
And that's amazing. That's well put. Let's pull it right back to your landscaping days now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
What happened after that? How did you get into carpentry?
So yeah, I ended up, that summer was over, and I was like, that was a great breaking point for me to not have to continue what I was doing every day.
Yeah.
Like I was like, let's just change it up. Let's see if you really want to. I said to myself, so I was making hockey stick furniture. This will bring all the Canadians in.
Nice.
So I played hockey my entire life, all the way through college, still do, and I would go to rinks.
Just to pause there on the hockey stick thing. I just want to get this out of the way. You're a Bruins fan, right?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Okay. No, that's okay.
I'm a Beast guy.
Yeah. I forgive you.
It's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You keep going.
Yeah. And yeah. And so this is back on wood sticks.
Yeah.
Very small amount of fiberglass back in the day, showing my age. But I'll collect sticks for whatever reason. And I just started, I went to Grossman's Bargain Outlet, which is a really, in the high level of how to buy tools, this is not the joint to go to get something that's going to be long lasting. It was just something that if I had money and my mom gave me or whatever it was, landscaping, I'm like, I'll go buy a chop saw. I'll do that. I think it was like an 8-inch chop saw, something random. And I started making tables and sticks and all that stuff. And I'd watch every Sunday This Old House or Mechanics, to be completely honest. I'd watch, a mechanics show that was they're taking brakes apart, whatever it was. I was really hands-on because it was something I could visually take on. It was really easy on learning that way. I could see them doing it and be like, oh, I can see those same components in my vehicle per se. And I could do that. I was very good about seeing something visually and then doing it myself or trying it. It wasn't like reading or reading out loud or doing math and showing your work. I wasn't comfortable as I was watching something and being it done. So I started making hockey stick furniture and giving it away. And then at the same token, I was like, if you really like what you see with Tommy Silver and that stuff, why don't we just go see what's out there? So this is back when there was newspapers. I went to an interview and I remember this is how it goes. And this is one of those things that I don't want this for the future kids or my kids. It's I sat down with this guy on his tailgate in Norwood, Mass. And he's just like, so what do you want to do? I'm like, I think I want to try carpentry or laboring or whatever it is that gets me in the door. And I think about this now. We never talked about price. The way it was back then, I don't know if it was for you, is they were like, all right, show up Monday.
Yeah.
Don't bring anything. Just bring you.
Yeah.
Show up Monday. And if you make it through the week, we'll talk about the next week. So it wasn't like, hey, can I go in and negotiate my wages? Can I do this? What's the benefits package? All these things. And I did that. And I showed up and I think to talk about Projekt Network is that I wish that there was, we said this in the pre-call, is that I wish I knew how much skill I was bringing to the table, whether it was hard work or the fact that I wanted to learn more, how much of that was valuable. So throughout my entire younger career of being a straight up carpenter bags on, I think I went from short money. I didn't have any expenses. I'm still living at home. Yeah. I had to pay for gas and lunch, and that was it. Or my mom was probably still making me lunch back then. So I was just banking money.
Yeah.
So I never valued it. I valued more so of what skills I could pick up that day. Whether it was I'll watch the site guy they're like, hey, go rake that gravel in place. And I'm doing it ass backwards or holding the rake upside down. No one's training you to do it. So I'm watching the guy over there do it. And I'm like, oh, that looks easier. I'll do it that way. Or then it's roofing. I'll do roofing. And I'm like, all right, so he's starting it that way. I'm going to start it this way. Yeah. None of these guys were giving away the knowledge. You were going to have to look under their armpit or look over their shoulder or get you by an angle. And that's how I did it.
I mean, it mirrors my experience almost to a T. I mean, I was told how much I was going to get paid when I showed up, but I didn't have any bargaining power. It was in Canadian, but it was $13. I was $13 an hour. There was no bartering. There was just I'm going to pay you $13 an hour, show up. And the first 6-12 months, nobody cared about, I had built a cedar strip canoe in my pre-apprenticeship, right? So I went in there and I was hot shit, right? I'm I handmade a cedar strip canoe. Like, I am the greatest carpenter that has ever lived, right? Like,
God's gift to carpentry.
And I got in there and I underpinned for 6 months because I showed my boss that I could work hard, and he kept me over actually my friend that got me the job originally. And I think it was because I was just the hardest working young kid there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
drive and ambition.
Yeah, exactly. And as we grew Hummingbird, like, I've employed so many carpenters over the years and so many young kids, and I'm sure you probably say the same thing, right? At the first couple of years, like, nobody cares about your skill set. It's show up on time, stay late if you can, and be the hardest working person on the crew. And that's how you're going to progress, right?
Agreed. I think part of it is, even if I look today at, like, we have assistant supers that are bags on, and like, I was at the interviews with some of the candidates, and I was like, he's client facing, meaning he's well put together. You could put him in someone's house, because that's a trick here. You could be at an office building. You're not in someone's personal space that they call home, their safe place. Yeah. You're in their house. It's so crazy.
You're in their kid's bedroom.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. Where they have birthday parties, all their core memories are made there. And so now you have this kid, and it's like, how much skill does he have? Does he have the basics? And is he not broken? Meaning, does he have bad habits you have to break him of? It's like sports. Yeah. You can have an amazing athlete. If they have a bad attitude, dude, same thing for carpentry. It's, I mean, really anything, really. Yeah. If you can't check the box off, play well with others, then it's going to be a real struggle. But if you have a good baseline of skill and you're willing to learn, that's all you really need. When it comes to the bar is so low for us that if you have ambition, you have, drive, and you want to learn, the hard part that we're talking about is, even with Projekt Network, and I think that the ability to be able to showcase how to do stuff and being able to use it as a resource that you can go back to and go, all right, how do I do this? Yeah. And because that's the biggest glitch in this whole scenario, is that everyone wants skill trades, but where do you find the skill when there's so much junk food for knowledge out there? There's so much clickbait stuff or stuff that hits the algorithm, like you and I talked about, that if it's nonsense and it's wrong, it'll get more clicks than something that's elite and beautiful and dialed in. Yeah. And it's crazy. And that's what I love about Projekt Network, is that you'll have this resource for people that are 30 years in or 3 months in, 3 weeks, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, no. And that's a great point. And I got to ask you, you mentioned just kind of watching the old timers, kind of picking up from them. I mean, it was the same thing for me. The guy that was supposed to be my mentor basically just like verbally abused me and called me names. And then, like, every now and then I'd pick something up or learn something. But I learned from, I mean, back in the day, it was like, I read Fine Home Building magazine and JLC. And this was like, I'm going to date myself here. And this was like early days of the internet. No, it wasn't early days of the internet. It was early days of social media. Right? Like, there was very little, like, YouTube was, I can't even remember, YouTube wasn't big for sure. There was limited resources in terms of learning, right? I think today there's a lot of places you can go to learn, but there's nowhere digitally that you can go for connections, you can go for mentorship, all that kind of stuff. So taking it back to when you're learning, like, how did you learn? Did you just watch the old timers?
Yeah, that's what it was. And to try and figure out what skill I had. And a lot of times, so I was a carpenter for 7 years, bags on, with the same company. And it was literally just, a lot of times I was getting work that the older guys didn't want to touch. Yeah. So if it was harder, if it was higher, that's something that I was called up to do. It's like, so when I need you to do that ridge, or let's sheathe the roof today. Yeah. And the old guys would be like, I'll cut down here and I'll slide you up the sheets. And no one taught me how to walk a roof. I remember the first time I brought up roof shingles when I was a laborer, before I did anything. And I remember I climbed up the ladder, no problem. Obviously showing the guns off. And I had like 2 bundles of asphalt shingles, and I'm cranking up there because that's probably what someone said to me to do. And I'm doing that, and I get to the top of the rung of the ladder, and the boys are like halfway up the roof. Okay. And I'm just like, it looked like it was miles away from the top of the ladder to where these boys were. It was like 6 feet, but it felt like a mile. And I was like, so hot. So I remember I just threw the shingles over, and they like were right on, like they have like the brace for the ladder. And I'm like, I'll just throw them right there. So I threw them right there. And then I go down and I do it fast enough so that way no one can see me do it wrong and no one can tell me to correct it. Because I didn't know how to correct. I didn't know what the next step was. And then I go back down the ladder, grab 2 more, come up. And at this point now everyone's just waiting for me to come up because they're like, what are we going to do with these? Like they're down by the ladder. And they're like, bring them up. And like, so there's a staging, obviously it's like just roof staging. So there's like a 2x8. Whatever, 2x10, maybe 2x8, and a couple of those up the roof, and they're like, bring them up. And I was like, oh God, how do I do this? I remember like climbing onto the roof like a spider, like 4 points of contact, maybe my face against the asphalt too.
Belly down, man, belly down.
Like it wasn't even I look back now and it's not like it was a 10 pitch or a 12 pitch. And it
was like a 412 or something.
Yeah, something. I could have run on it. And, And I remember I was just like, and then I did it and I got it to the staging. And then I remember going back was even harder than going up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was just like, oh my goodness. And I remember just sliding down on my butt and getting to the ladder. And then I was like, and then it took me like, I think 1 or 2 more trips. And then I said to myself, if you're really going to do this, if you're going to make a thing of this, like a job, and you're going to really want to do this, you need to be the best at doing something that you hate doing.
Yeah.
Like, just don't think about the roof. This is what I'm having this, again, like we said in the beginning, like it can be really lonely. This dilemma was fighting in my head to myself.
Yeah.
Like, we got to do this. We got what's worse. So I remember I went down to one bundle and I was like, all right, let's just try and walk it. Let's just try and walk it comfortably to that first set. And then by like the 4th or 5th, pass to get up there, I was just walking up and down.
Yeah.
And I remember never thinking about actually being on a roof. That was the trick. It was just not thinking about falling. And that's been that way forever, to be completely honest with you. From this day on, never thinking about the height or the risk or whatever it was. Obviously, it's like a table saw. You don't want to be scared of a table saw, but you want to respect it.
Yeah.
So I've done some stupid stuff, hanging from crazy stuff, but at the same token, I respect what I was trying to do, but I wasn't doing it recklessly. And I think, but if you start thinking about, it's like sports, you start thinking about getting hurt, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But if you think about falling or whatever it is, it's going to happen. But if you understand, now there's more fall protection, all these things that exist. There's so many lifts and you get to take advantage of it. And the beauty there is it eliminates the amount of people getting hurt, but also increases the amount of work that gets done at a great level, quality wise, at higher points, because that it would deteriorate the higher you went up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love this story. Like for me, I am scared shitless of heights. So like even stepping, like, you'd get the sort of second story with like the first story roof over like a veranda or whatever.
Yeah.
Stepping out the second story window onto like a 412 roof or something like I couldn't do that. Like I'd get out and I was just like, oh my God, just grabbing the roof. They're like, you got to go down. You got to nail the fascia in there. I was like, oh my God, no, there's no way. I can't do that. Right. So no shame. I am terrified of heights. They were not my thing. I got really good at trim. But when I was starting, the thing that I kicked ass at, because the heights was not something that I was going to kick ass at, but it was digging. Like I was really good at digging holes. I was really good at underpinning. I would just hustle, right? And cleaning up. It was all the like super mundane stuff, but you touched on it earlier, the loneliness. And man, when you're at the bottom of the totem pole, like, not that nobody talks to you, they talk to you, but nobody else is doing your job. Like you're just doing the bullshit and you kind of just got to slog through it, right?
You have to look beyond it and try and figure out, again, the value. Yeah. And I thought the only way to climb out of that was to learn skill.
Yeah.
And so I would pick up skill and try and perfect it, not try and beat out other people, because you weren't going to gain respect that way.
Yeah.
It was more to be able, if that person always picks up this tool third, how do I pick up that tool for them and hand it to them before they ask?
Yes.
So I found myself doing that a lot of the way. And then you found that you gained enough trust that you weren't going to try and steal their job or whatever. You're just trying to help them perfect it and make it go quicker for them. That then they'd peel it off and go, hey, why don't you try that one? Why don't you, same thing, like instead of picking up the third tool and fourth tool and feeding it to them, they'd go, hey, let's just say replacement windows. Why don't you go strip that window over there? So when I'm now ready to go set that window, I'll do the technical part, but you can take off the extension jams.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Absolutely. And a good mentor will get excited as you develop, right? That
100%.
because you're helping them, you're making their job easier, right? And I think a good mentor too, like there's a lot of pride that comes with it and a lot of care. Like a lot of the really good craftsmen and women want to impart knowledge on the younger generations. Like they want to train people. The guy that the guy that really ended up training me was he was just he was a fantastic teacher. Like he took the time, he was calm, and he explained things to me and he walked me through it. And as I got better, I could help him more and more and more. And I made his job easier and easier and easier. Right?
You made him more valuable.
Exactly.
As a team, you were more valuable than him individually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the whole part of it. And then you grow from there. And I remember I grew from that company. That roof I was doing, I still remember it was in Needham. And it was in the backside that I was walking up the ladder. And then I would say 2 months later, we were framing a house in Norfolk. And I remember I made it a point to prove to myself about heights that I would stand on the highest point of everything we framed. So the first floor deck went on, stand on it. No big deal. Second floor deck, boom. Roof, ridge, standing on it. Framed out, false, a chimney that's 3 feet above the ridge. Standing on that when I put the plow in. So it was like this little Everest celebration. I reached a peak, and by the time I was done with it, so my old boss, one of the things that he would do, he was 62, he would make us, I didn't know any better. I just knew what I saw is that they were nailing guns and pneumatic, all this stuff. He'd have us do everything by hand. He wanted us to get a feel for everything, even doing hardwood flooring. That was not a pneumatic gun. It took me 3 pumps on that thing to get a nail in. And by the time I was done with it, I was throwing everything I had. I was like, well, $140 back then. And I was throwing everything I had to make sure it was one swing. So I didn't slow anybody down. I didn't want to slow the crew down. And so I did that. So 7 years in, it's funny, I never really understood how the pay thing went because I always watched the other guys. No one ever asked for more money. And I always just thought that if I gained enough skill, someone would just pay me more money because I was more valuable. Yeah. And that wasn't the case. And again, no one talked about money back then. Yeah. You get me? No one did that. So it was like, all right, so what am I doing? And I would watch the other guys go, oh, hey, they would turn to the boss and go, hey, I got a job offer with this other crew. And the guy would be like, so how much you making? And he's like, oh, I'm getting paid like $27 an hour over there. I'm only getting paid 25 here. It was a game. They never went anywhere. Yeah. That's the only way that they could negotiate a pay raise. Yeah. And so me being the younger guy, I think it turned out to be like every year I would get an upgrade. And I ended up finishing when I graduated college with construction management as a degree, just to fast forward a little bit. So I went to school for construction management, but I worked every time I didn't have a class. So if I didn't have classes till 2, I was out pouring concrete that morning with that crew because I became an asset, meaning, oh, Johnny's in classes all day, then today's kind of a relaxed day. Yeah. But if Johnny is there, then we're going to get so much more done that it just, when the boss shows up, it's like, well, boom, I was this kind of Tasmanian devil production guy. So
when you're working as a carpenter for this company, were you in any sort of apprenticeship model? I'm not entirely sure how it works down there or what the...
No. So you could, I wish there was. And again, this is lack of knowledge and understanding of you're just in a bubble and you know what you know that's inside this bubble. And I think I knew about the North Bennett Street School, which is like the oldest trade school in America. Yeah. And I knew about that, but I couldn't afford it. It was like, back then it was like, I want to say it was 18 to 20K. For like a 6-month course, but you'd be, and you still are. It's like you're the elite, not a blue ribbon or whatever you guys are, red tail.
Red seal.
By the way, blue ribbon is a.
I wish it was a blue ribbon. That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah. Blue ribbon is like a roast beef place. It's like a barbecue point out here. But it's no, none of that existed. So I didn't know what my options were. Literally, if you look around you, everyone was just doing it, and they would bounce from crew to crew, maybe framing. They'd specialize a little bit, but like we were jack of all trades. Like we even did a little bit of plumbing, electrical. Yeah. So to me, I was so satisfied with the variety of work, whether it being a roof, ripping off the roof of a cape, making a colonial, to full homes, to doing just a kitchen in Boston. Like it was like we ran the gamut, and so for me, going back to like landscaping when it was just this couple tasks that you had to just rinse and repeat. the variety was like so awesome. And to me, the sky was the limit, because I would watch my boss. At one point, he'd start taking me along, probably because I was decently client facing. He'd take me along for some of these walkthroughs of these houses, and we'd meet the client. Hour and a half later, he would give the client on the walk out, like, hey, yeah, I think it's going to be like $200,000. And I'm like, okay, I'm never going to be a general contractor. I don't know what he just saw. I don't know how he did the math. And that's one of the things that was never told to me for the longest time. I had to figure it out. Everything's been figured out on my own. And that's how it was. But there was no apprentice program. You have it for plumbing, you have it for electrical out here. But there's nothing really, because it requires hours. For us, like when I went to college, you took your classes, and part of that, you got your OSHA 30, you get these things, and you had the ability that you'd have to have 3 years of experience to get your license. That was it. And you'd bring a code book, and you'd be able to tab through it. And they had code classes that would basically teach you how to tab out the 670 pages of code. So that way you knew where the contradictions were, you knew where everything was in the code, just to take a test. But I learned, I was 7 years in when I finally did it, that I was like, I knew all this stuff. They taught me, like, you don't put 2x6s as roof rafters. What are you, crazy? Like, it's through osmosis I learned most of it. And I wish it was an apprenticeship that I would have absolutely signed up for it. 100%. I think the bottom line for me, if I were to look at it, I would have understood the hierarchy of skills and which ones I needed to learn and which ones I could have waited on, and not be like, oh, I'm learning that because I want that tool. There was a little bit of that happening.
So how do you think it would have been different for you if basically Projekt Network, what we're working on right now, like if that was available to you back then, and the ability to network and collaborate and meet other people in the same shoes as you, maybe different situations, maybe find mentors online. Like, how do you think that might have benefited you?
Not even back then. I mean, so much so as back then as today. Okay. Like to even go even more fast forward, I ended up running my own company. Why? Because I was making X amount of dollars as a PM / super for a company. And I was making good money, like $200,000 a year. But I hated that boss and interaction. And even at my late 30s, early 40s, same question applied to me at 16. Okay. All right. I don't think I'm going to be able to make $200,000 somewhere else, because I didn't know. I'm pretty in depth with what is in the industry, like what companies are doing what, but I never thought in my right mind, the company I'm with now would be able to put me, like, if you were to tell me, hey, oh, you can run one job, you can make the same amount of money you were making before and being on one job and just creating, where everything I learned over the years with my old boss being a carpenter on 4 or 5 different jobs, and he's juggling us around, that was just kind of what we knew. So that's what I did. Even when I started doing my own thing, is, all right, I'm going to do that. If I knew that the options were out there, it's not like LinkedIn where I can go and, oh yeah, there's a job offer for an accountant over here. I drive by a million accountant places. You don't see signs for builders everywhere. You might see a job site sign, but not this building that's available. So it was different. But my point was, even today, is that I wouldn't have had to try and start my own business and be accountable for everything between writing checks, collecting money, all the details, getting manpower ready to go, having subcontracts, all that stuff. I could have gone and worked for a team that was already established, that was bringing the work in, and just do what I loved. So now taking it back to 16 years old, I didn't know any better. I was just chasing a skill. And if I had known with like-minded students that, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like my son just said, perfect example. He's at a school, and he's like, Dad, my roommate. So my son did landscaping the last 2 years, last 2 summers, and I wanted to learn work ethic. That was my goal. And he did that. And then he made $20 an hour at overtime, all these things. And because I want the boys to understand value of money, and to be able to freely ask about it, because that's something I never did when I was younger. I just, you see value in me, you understand how much I'm worth, pay me that. And so he does that, and he's making $20 an hour, which is great money for him. Okay. As a senior in high school, we see him in college a couple weeks ago, and he's like, so Dad, hey, Pete, my roommate, he makes $20 an hour. He returns the shopping carts from the parking lot into the Walmart he makes $20 an hour. And I go, okay. And he goes, I'm not doing landscaping next year. And I go, why? Because it's hard work? He goes, bitch, he's making the same as me. Well, I'm doing more work than him. I go, now you know what the level of work is. And I go, but you get overtime. He goes, Pete gets overtime for bringing the carts back. And I go, and I had to think about this, and it stung. And I was like, so one of the things, we're in his dorm room, and they have like these little crank out windows, and they stop at like 3 inches.
Yeah.
Turns to me and goes, Dad, I fixed that window. Cranks out all the way. and because he has like my Klein screwdriver, and he just did it. And he's like, it's a way better breeze, blah, blah. I'm like, I love it. And we leave in the dorm room, we look up, and we look at all, I'm like, I wonder which room it is. He's out of this massive wall of windows. Okay. Yeah. His is the only one that's cranked all the way open. So I text him, I go, I get you and Pete make $20 an hour. Same thing. I go, you're walking away with a skill that he's not, and that you can build off of. Anyone can return those carts.
It's that's funny. I've had this conversation over the years numerous times with young apprentices, and for us, it's like we got to battle Starbucks, right? So again, in Canadian dollars, but like you first get, I honestly don't even know like right now what it would be. I'm going to go back a couple years to when I was still heavily involved in the recruiting side of the business. But you'd bring people in, and a first year you'd pay them $18-19 an hour, something like that. But at Starbucks, they could get paid $18 an hour and have benefits. Mm-hmm. And it was like, at Starbucks, like, I don't know, I'm sure you can make more than $18 an hour at some point at Starbucks, but like there is a ceiling. And that ceiling is lower than if you stick it out and you bust ass for a couple of years. Because at 18, 4 or 5 years later is high 30s, you're into the 40s. Our top guys are mid-high 40s, right? Like you can get a high hourly wage that you're not going to be getting at Starbucks. Unless you think you're going to climb the corporate ladder, which, like, good on you.
But that's what I love about what you guys are doing with Project Network, is that you're going to be able to put in your experience, and then it's going to give you your value. And that would have absolutely changed the game for me, because again, like I said, I didn't have the confidence. Why would I? I was young in the industry, and it takes so long. I thought the timelines were 10-year increments. It was going to take me 10 years to learn this. It was going to take me 10 years to do this. And I took that approach, and I tried to speed it up like anyone would with sports. If I go to practice 3 days a week, add a couple hours, then I can get better at that. So I would take on side jobs, side gigs, everything I could, roofing on the side, everything, because I thought if I did more of it, I would learn it faster. But I do think having this kind of network that's made for us, our skills, our knowledge, our details, and sharing that within, I think it's, to be completely honest with you, and this isn't something that you and I have ever talked about, the only way the industry is going to understand its own value, I think the industry is me at 16. Yeah. Okay. It only knows what it knows, and it knows what the value is. You and I are fine with paying 300% markup on sneakers, but yet we're getting pinched in our industry when we do a $20 million build that we're at 15%. Yeah. Okay. The only way this internal group has to happen to understand what everybody in the market, I'll just say the US, for instance, what Utah's getting, what California, New York, and Boston, what these guys are getting will help basically educate middle America on what it's going to be. House values will go up because all those costs go up. And it's going to be something that I think over the next 5, 6, 8 years, it's going to catapult this industry with the help of your platform, as well as the industry learning in general and being more accepted and more valued.
I love that. And I'm looking at the time, and we made a promise to each other. We're going to keep this under 45 minutes. I think me and you could probably just talk for hours. So let's, I think that was a good departure point. I want to mention quickly, because you've dropped it a couple of times, about being kind of told your worth. So for our listeners, that what Johnny's referring to is what we're calling the appeal score, which is still in beta. So if you're signing up right now, take it with a grain of salt. But the intention there is to pull back. We're basically using AI to do a comb of the entire web, to pull back basically data that relates to your skill set, your geographical location, your experience, and basically tell you what your market rate ought to be, right? Plus or minus a couple bucks. the testing that we've done so far, it's pretty good on a couple of use cases. What we hope to do is, as we build out the network, have everybody that joins the platform input all of their historical hourly wages. One of my goals for the platform is to build the world's largest database of construction wage data, because the only wage data that exists right now is government data, which is pretty garbage. It doesn't tell a whole it doesn't tell a whole lot about anything. So that's one of our goals, and we're hoping that becomes a really useful tool. But in the meantime, it's an incredible place to go and network, find other people that are like you, find other people that are more skilled than you that you can learn from, right? It's really intended to be an open place and a community just for the trades. So with that, Johnny, thanks for being on episode number 4. But
I love it.
You're gonna be on this one a bunch. I think we got lots of stuff that we're gonna talk about.
I love it.
So before we depart, do we want to chat real quickly and sort of talk about your involvement with Projekt Network? Do you want to touch on that, or
whatever? I'd love it. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, that's the green light to announce that Johnny Hurahan is a community ambassador for us. So Johnny, I guess we first started chatting about it sort of shortly after I was on the Glorified Carpenter. I reached out, and I think I first mentioned it to you on that podcast, and I reached out and
we launched it. We launched it on the Glorified Carpenter.
Basically that was the launch point of Projekt Network, and I reached out, a month or two later, and I said, Johnny, like, do you want to help us grow this thing, be a part of this, and it was basically just hell's bells from you. It was like, let's
I'm a
let's
yes
do
man.
It. Yeah. That's
my default yes
amazing.
Until you tell me otherwise. And I mean, it coincides exactly with what I want to be doing with, my little, how do I give back? And I think I want to visit trade schools, and I did a guest lecturing at North Bennett Street School, which was an absolute honor. And I'm going out too. I think I texted you about going to PA and meeting a couple of builders out there, but then we're setting up a meeting with their trade schools. And I'm a little shocked by the numbers that they have there, which was a class of 50 or upwards of 200. And I'm like, I can change my slides. Yeah. So I'm going to go there, and I try, and the goal is that, again, going back to the beginning, is that what exposure did I have to the industry? And I think that shapes a lot of who we are going forward. Beyond your parents and those things, and watching baseball, whatever shows you're into, I'm sure, like, I watched the Navy SEAL show when I was younger, a movie, and I was like, oh, dude, I want to be a Navy SEAL, So I look at this thing of, I've done some amazing work, and I've been able to document it with cameras and drones and all these things. And it's not selfish. I want to go there, and I want to blow the doors off these kids and their ideas and their ambition and their thoughts, and what the limit is. I'm going to show them what it is, and it's just blowing through the sky. And it'd be like, I want them to walk away and go, Mom and Dad, you're not going to believe who I met today. This guy from Boston is out of his mind, building cool stuff, but it fits the whole image. Like, I want to dress well, like I do every day. Because you and I, every time we've been exposed to carpenters, this is a side thing, but in movies, it's a guy in raggedy jeans driving a piece of crap pickup and a wife beater. And it's like, that's what we've got to change it. Like, even that new one from Mark Wahlberg, where he's like, I mean, HGTV's helped us in a way, but it's like Instant Family. I think that's what it was, where he's a contractor, and he's like just driving this old Ford. And don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for it, but we have to rechange the imaging of what we have for our industry. And I think it starts with the kids. And I do think that there has to be a whole thing about education that gets filled in the gaps. But my goal is to go and visit these schools. I was going anyways. And I think having them understand and know that this network is out there for them in the industry will only help them. And that's my goal. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, incredibly well said. Like, it starts with community, and it starts with pride in what we do. Right. Johnny, thanks so much. Look at you.
Let's call it that.
Almost on the button.